Hi everyone, I'm Subhojit. I work in Microsoft Turing team, and I lead various projects across Q&A, question answering system, conversational systems, multimodal applications, and deep learning in those domains, and image super resolution. I'm going to talk about summarization across multiple documents and modalities today. Search engines have evolved over time. Like at the beginning of 2000s, the search engine's job was to find the top 10 documents that are most relevant to an user query. But over time, search engines are doing more task completions. That means as you type some information, the page itself tries to return you the exact information that you are looking for, so that you don't have to click and go to another document and do more work. And question answering capability over unstructured data has been very critical for the success of some of these tasks. And there has been tremendous progress in deep learning in natural language domain, and that has enabled some of this experience. And in the next slide, I'm going to talk about long document comprehension, which is a very critical piece to do this question answering system. For example, in this scenario, there's a question and there is a document. Both of them go as an input to this model, long document MRC. The model can find, going through this entire page, exactly where the answer to this question is. And once we know it, we can actually show it to the users instead of sharing them just a link to this document. And how this model is used in a production system. This is our production system for Bing, where it's a rough architecture. And the way it works, when the user query comes, we go into billions of documents index, and we find some top candidate documents through a web ranker. And then our Q&A system starts. There are about 100-ish documents, and of the order of 100. And then we run through long machine reading comprehension models and get some candidate passages that can potentially answer those questions. And once that stage happens, we aggregate across all those documents and each passage from there, and run a more expensive model, passage level machine reading comprehension model, that determines whether which candidate is best and which exactly the answer we should show to the user. In this case, for example, this query, what year did Disney buy Lucasfilms? We finally found this is the most important answer. And we also know, we highlight that this is exactly the answer like the phrase that answers this question. We also have some natural language generation capabilities where we can also generate an user-friendly answer, which is very useful if we are using a speech interface. And one remarkable thing is that this whole stack, where these are all deep learning models, we run in production in less than 25 milliseconds. And some of these models in production system gets about millions of inferences per second, which is a massive scale. And although I talked about machine reading comprehension and recent advancements in this area, one important aspect for a real product scenario is that machine reading comprehension or deep learning models is not the end of a question answering system. Now, a real system has to address many other challenges. For example, freshness. You can type a query, who is the president? And then there are multiple documents, like maybe a document was written in 2018 versus a document that is written in 2021. We need to know that the freshness of the document actually matters in this case. Just because looking at the query and the document you found some exact answer to it doesn't mean that will be correct. Similarly, authority is a very important aspect. There are lots of content in the web written. Anybody can write anything on the web. Like you and me can write anything. And just because the content exists doesn't mean we can actually show the answers from those documents as Q&A answer. For example, in this query, what are 7 spheres of the earth? Now, this page from the domain findanyAnswer.com, I personally don't know whether this is an authoritative source or not, but I know this other document, which is Wikipedia, is more authoritative. Now, if I compare the content, both of these documents, I enlarge the content here, have the exact same answer. But this answer is written in a very machine learning friendly or algorithm friendly way. And this page's whole purpose is to just answer this question. But one challenge here is that we do not know whether this answer is trustable in many cases. Whereas we know, due to the editorial process of Wikipedia, any answer that we can find here is actually authoritative. But this is not very friendly for an algorithm, or even as a human being. Like, this is not very intuitive. You really need to read this very carefully to know what it is talking about. Now, that is where the challenge comes. Because if we run algorithms, they will always find this web page and tell this is the best answer I found. But users may or may not like it because they may look for confidence and trust. That is where more work comes into picture. Just MRC doesn't get you there. Similarly, perspectives is an important aspect. Different documents may present different perspectives. How do we show it to the user? That's another piece, because we cannot choose the most friendly, the document that is written in the most friendly way to the user and show that that is only one perspective that exists. Similarly, misinformation is a very big problem in the web, as all of you are probably aware of in recent years, and we need to be careful about those as well. So one of the things that we are doing in Bing, and some of these works are actually in progress, and we hope to see them in production very soon, within a month or months, is how can we enable multi-document answering, question answers to the answers from questions to the users. For example, in this scenario, this is in German because I'm showing some examples in other languages, because all our production models are multilingual or universal. They support about 100 languages. And if we look at this question, and this is the actual answer that we'll show in German, and this is the answer that is like, this is a translated version of it. Now, we can see that various documents have very similar answer. So once we see that, we know that this is probably a correct answer. And that is when we actually give a big font and then promote it as something we call direct answer. Similarly, there are other scenarios where people can ask for a question. This is a Chinese example, and this is again a translation. And this is a question, can we do something? And the answer, based on 3 sources from the web, is no. And then once we infer that, we can actually promote it and say no to the user, that answer to your question is no. Again, another example where we look at multiple documents, and that helps us to build confidence that, okay, what we are seeing is not a one-off answer. There are multiple documents that actually give that answer. Similarly, different perspectives can be addressed better through multi-document question answering. In this scenario, the question is that whether energy drinks are safe while pregnant. And there are 2 different views, and we are actually presenting both of them, yes versus no, the perspectives from the web. And also there has been a lot of advancement in recent times with natural language generation. One aspect I talked about is user friendliness. For example, the example I gave earlier, what are the 7 spheres of Earth? The document from Wikipedia was not very friendly. It was not friendly for the algorithm. It is also not a very friendly answer to a human being who is issuing the query. Now, we have tremendous progress in natural language generation capabilities, so the models can take both input, the query and this paragraph, and it can generate a very friendly answer to that question. Like in this scenario, this is a model, like one of our models output this answer, which said the 7 spheres of the Earth are this. So this is a big progress, and actually we can do now this answering based on multiple documents as well. So we can feed multiple documents or multiple paragraphs to the same model, and it can actually summarize content from multiple documents to generate an answer like this. Similarly, multimodality is a very critical piece in question answering. Many times an image is 1,000 times more valuable than the piece of text that can answer the question. Here the question is how many stomach in cows, and there is actually just one stomach and there are 4 compartments, and this passage partially talks about that. It's very hard to summarize it, but again, like this picture actually tells the whole story that we show to the users, that these are the different parts in the stomach. And so picture is sometimes very important, and the multimodality advancement actually helps us with that. That's all from me, and thank you very much for your time.